So guys, this is Issues with Toddy. One skip, I am, you are not. And I'm not Chevy Chase either. Should I get that shirt? Should that be part of the merch? I feel like I need to include Chevy Chase for those people that might not know, the reference and think that I came up with it. I did not. Guys, so here's the thing that's got me a bit wonky doodly and confused. So, I did a video on NPG Cornerstone. I did two. So this is going to be the third one. And so I just want to straighten out what I've tried to straighten out, even in the live, where somebody was like, please just watch this video, And you know what? I think that I did watch that video because I think I put a comment on there. Let's start at the beginning because I'm confusing myself. NPG Cornerstone is asking for $250,000. And they're saying that they want this money for to get Nick the best lawyer possible for habeas corpus that they're writing out that they said that they're writing out. I believe that they said that they were doing, for Nick, and that this is what it is it asks the judge to please take into consideration things that have come out later in mitigating circumstances that weren't addressed, and maybe even things that made Nick have less than a fair trial. Okay? So, first of all, they have to grant that. They have to grant that. That's something that the judge might not do. The judge might not look at his sentence and let him, whatever. The judge could say no. More times than not, unfortunately, they do say no. So what NPG Cornerstone is saying, hey, in case of this, we want to have $250,000 put in the bank so that as soon as the judge says, okay, I'll allow you to do this, we can just go. Well, no, it's not going to work like that anyway. And there's a lot of things that you guys have brought up as well. Isn't Nick allowed to get somebody through legal aid in prison? Yes. And I guess the argument through NPG Cornerstone would be, well, look at what happened with the first free counsel he had. Yes. That would be a good argument. However, not everybody is going to do that, and it was more than just his counsel. His counsel tried to bring in things, and people said no about it. So it went over the head of his counsel. His counsel tried to bring up and fight for things that were left out of the trial, and that's on the judge on that one, right? So what if you get a bad judge? Well, if the judge says no, you don't need the $250,000. But let me tell you something that I want you guys to just think about this. If 1,000 people were to donate $250, okay? Now, $250, that's a lot of money. If 2,000 people were to donate $125, okay, you'd get what? You'd get your $250,000. And individuals would be out at the most $125 or $250. Well, nobody's going to go to court, hire a lawyer, because those lawyers don't do things pro bono, so you got to pay for your lawyer, which right away you spent over $250. So you're going to let go of the $250 and chalk it up as a life experience, a life lesson, yes? But let's say 5 people are involved in some sort of scam. We don't know that they are. We don't know that they're not. 5 people split $250,000. They each get 50 grand. That's a lot of fucking money. That's a lot of fucking money. If one person or 2 persons, 2 people are behind, that's a lot more money, right? That's a lot more than a lot of fucking money. So when I ask who is behind NPG Cornerstone, that alone, for that reason alone, NPG Cornerstone hasn't even put out anything other than an AI voice. You know, somebody said, and I don't know if they were being sarcastic because they wrote this, so it's hard to, you know, get exactly the context of somebody's text message. But they said they don't nobody has to expose themselves or let you know their identity, and they can still be transparent. It was that. It was to the effect of that. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. All of these videos, again, are AI, chat GPT, whatever the fuck. Everything, there is nobody real or living, it seems, with any kind of heartbeat or anything when it comes to NPG Cornerstone. And when people ask questions, apparently, because I've seen it myself, and a lot of people have said it, instead of the questions being answered in a way that invites people to join the cause, they get pushed away, insulted, berated. That's why in the live stream, I don't want people to do that to somebody. Don't do that to somebody. That's not a good look. I don't co-sign that. That's not good, you know. So, for those that don't know, there was somebody in the comments today that was telling me, you know, please just look at the video. Look at the video. They weren't being rude or anything. So, anyway, you know, that's what, you know, NPG does. We don't do that. So, let's not do that. And NPG, you know, and then I hear, and I've seen it myself with my eyes, that, and there's videos that I've made that show that Fancy and people from NPG, higher ranking people in the NPG Cornerstone, had some sort of camaraderie with Fancy. Now, make that make sense. Nick was part of being used by Fancy, and Fancy had said she never wanted Nick to see the light of day. Bree supposedly is for NPG Cornerstone, but Gypsy calls him a piece of shit. And why would Bree stick up for Nick when she's not stuck up for anybody else who had anything right to say? You know, she said she sticks up for Nick. She thinks that Nick should have a fair trial. Isn't that what Bree said? But when we bring things to the table that are true and just as critical with the thinking, they never apply to us, because, see, we're here and we could say, I don't think that, we could say that, look at the behavior. Look, no, you can clearly see. Nick, what's he going to say? What's he going to know? Seriously. And then there are people that get offended and say, well, Nick says, listen, I don't need anybody to tell me that Nick says he is, vouches for NPG Cornerstone. I asked him point blank, and I've shared that with you guys. I've been transparent. I shared that with you guys, and I told you he does say that those are his people. Those are his people, and I shouldn't question them. Okay, I'm not going to question them anymore, but I'm not going to give them any money. I'm not going to give them any support. If you don't allow me to question somebody, I'll give you that respect, but I'm not going to give them any kind of respect. I'm not going to vouch for them because you told me to. Nick, no offense. You know, once upon a time you were manipulated by Gypsy Rose. And for some reason, you're still not willing to tell your side of the story. So, are you still being manipulated by Gypsy Rose? Am I supposed to take for granted that you know what's best for yourself now? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in truthfulness. How do you know what's best for yourself? I don't know you. I don't know you. I know that you have been used and abused by people, Nick. That's what I know. And I have no desire to do that. But I don't know who's pulling your strings on the other end. Or if anybody is. But NPG Cornerstone isn't acting like they have anything in his best interest. And I know that Nick isn't watching this. I don't know. But maybe somebody is. Maybe somebody there. Maybe somebody will say something to somebody. You know, I still have inmates that, you know, I'm asking to please reach out. I still reach out to people and say, can't you, you know, put, you know, a mouth in his ear and have somebody tell him what's going on so that, you know, there's a chance for him. But I don't know, you know, I don't know. Even if he were to tell his side of the story, if he still says that he, you know, jabbed Dee Dee 4 times, it doesn't change anything for him. And it doesn't change anything for Gypsy. Because it's the same crime, and that falls under double jeopardy. Gypsy would have to be charged on a whole different crime, and it would, I believe, have to be a federal crime. Which could be mailing the murder weapon. You know, it could be mailing that. I don't know enough about the law to know about that extreme part of the law and what category that would fall under. It's a guessing game. There's enough that I need to learn, know, and have, and then there's things. Listen, doesn't matter. I think that Gypsy would have to get a new charge. She's not gonna. So why isn't Nick saying anything? He can't really hurt Gypsy anymore. So why isn't he saying anything? I think because some way, somehow, he's still being manipulated. You know, when somebody's incarcerated, it gets comfortable after a while. I mean, I'm not saying that sitting in a cell all by yourself, but, you know, Nick, as far as I know, he works with the pitties for parolees, and, you know, I'm sure that he has made, you know, I'm sure that he has people that he's close with there. I'm sure that there are deputies or COs, correctional officers, that like him. Because why wouldn't you like him? You know what I'm saying? I think they'd feel sorry for him. Some people might try to take advantage of him, but then you got some good cell mates that are going to look out for him because, you know, you would want Nick in your cell as a cellmate. You would. Because he's not going to be somebody that's going to fuck around with your shit, and you're going to be more or less the top dog in the cell. So why would you mess it up and get a chance of getting somebody who might take over that top dog position in the cell? You know what I'm saying? So, and, you know, and I don't mean to be cruel and I don't mean to be mean, but Nick could be a good form, not really a good form, but a bad form of entertainment for him because of his autism. You know what I'm saying? So, what I'm saying is, he's made himself a life there in prison. It's not a great life, you know, but as far as what I would think with inmates and what I know of the system, he has it a lot better than a lot of other inmates that would be incarcerated for other crimes and for other behaviors and attitudes and stuff. And that doesn't strike me at all with Nick. I think that he was probably picked on when he got there, but he's been there long enough now that he has, some sort of comfort there. In my opinion, I think so. So, I'm not saying it's a better life for him. I would never make that, decision for him. But I'm saying it's not as horrible as, inmates that are in there for other crimes. So Nick has had the opportunity to talk. It's not going to hurt Gypsy anymore. The FOIAs have come out. It's not going to hurt Gypsy anymore. Even if Nick were to say, I didn't do anything, I lied about the 4 stab wounds. First of all, we would have to believe that he lied about the 4 stab wounds, and it wouldn't change anything, again, because of double jeopardy. So why isn't Nick speaking now? Why didn't Nick speak before? There's something that he's being manipulated some way, somehow, whether he knows it or not. Okay, so let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he just doesn't know it. I mean, it's basically what I just said, that he, doesn't know any better about that. Guys, it's up to you guys to decide what you do with your money. Of course, it's your money. And by the way, that being said, I woke up to a really nice cash app, and that really made me happy. You guys make me happy anyway. But that was thankful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And you know who you are, so thank you so much. But your memberships, your subscriptions, the merch, the super chats, just watching, and please, half of you are on the fence, it seems like. Please, hit the button. If you don't like us, you can leave. We're not a cult. We don't make you stay. So thank you for that. But guys, I keep going back to this saying from my favorite television show of all time, which is a Spanish show, that was on Netflix, and it was called Bis a Bis. B-I-S-A B-I-S. And it's Spanish for face to face, but they called the show Locked Up in America. But I watched the show in Spanish with the Spanish audio, and I read the subtitles. And that's important, in my opinion, because it's very important to get the expression of the actor when they're saying the words. So even while you're reading it, you can still get the expression. You might have to, I'm one of those people that has to, maybe go back and stop something if there's a lot being said, because I don't read extremely fast, but I read fast enough. Anyway, there's a scene in this show that has so many great lines that says that liquid is the only form. Liquid is the only material, or the only mineral, or the only what's the word I'm looking for? Element that takes the shape of whatever it is in. Okay? So if you pour liquid into any kind of shape, it will take its shape. In other words, it fits, it adapts, it makes it work. The body is, I forget the percentage, but it's a lot more percentage of liquid, and therefore it fits, and it makes its shape in whatever shape it's in. And that's what happens with an inmate after a certain amount of time. They make it work, providing they're not like Richard Allen, who was 13 months in solitary confinement. Nick isn't being treated like that, Guys, you have to remember that Nick got in trouble because somebody tried to videotape him. Nick, I'm sure, gets surprised when somebody puts something in his account, in his JPay account, so that he can maybe get something that would be a treat for him, something he didn't expect. And if he does have, the dog, perhaps he can get something for the dog as a treat, So I think that, right, somebody said, and they're right, in my opinion, I hate to say it, but somebody said, the chances of Nick getting anything overturned or anything like that is very low, very, very low, right? So let's just make him comfortable, Here's the thing, guys. I'm just saying. I don't want to fight for somebody. I don't want to fight somebody's battle harder and stronger than they're willing to fight their battle. I don't see Nick fighting his battle. He's not speaking. He's not writing letters. He's not saying to people, please write letters for me. Please do this for me. And then, if he is, then tell me, and if he's working through, or they're working through NPG Cornerstone, then tell me why, when we were able to get so many letters, when we were able to get so many letters, why they were trying to distract me in doing so, why they put that whole doxing mess out at that time, because that's what happened. At the same time that we were getting those clemency letters, I was getting bombarded, and I'm going to use that word correctly this time, without exaggeration, bombarded with bullshit about NPG Cornerstone. NPG Cornerstone. So, I don't know, guys. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But, it's your money, and you do what you want to do with your money. Those people that want Nick to benefit directly from the money, it should go to JPay, because it gets to JPay. It gets him. It gets to him, and he has access to that. And you don't even have to do that. You could write to him. Just don't expect him to, he doesn't trust anybody. But listen, nice letters, they're always, they can make somebody's day. Writing somebody a story can make somebody's day. Just remember that the deputies, the COs, are going to be reading the letters. At least one. They're supposed to go through it. Or maybe there's just a friggin' AI-generated thing that goes through them now. I don't know. But, anything that would be scanned or, what's the word I'm looking for? That would be spotted and put on hold because of red flagged, okay? Anything that would be red flagged in a letter would definitely be looked at by somebody of human. So if something, brings up a red flag in the commissary letter, in Nick's letter, it's going to go to a live person. So be careful what you write. Be careful what you send. But just a letter of support that he's not forgotten and that he matters. I think that everybody wants to matter. They want to know that they matter. So, that's it. He's in a jail, in a prison. So, if somebody lived in a different part of the world, like we got people from Scotland, and Australia, yeah, and New Zealand, and all Norway. We had people from Norway. We had people from Belgium. I don't know where the people come from, really anymore. But if they wanted to write to Nick and tell him about their part of the world and stuff, maybe Nick is interested in stuff like that. It would give him a chance to, go virtual in his mind, So I don't know. That's how I think the best way to help Nick. And with the clemency letters, which we've already written, if Nick is granted and there's a lawyer needed, then, and there's proof of that, then yeah, I would donate. So anyway, guys, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm thinking. But I just want you to remember, it only takes us a little bit of money for somebody to make a lot of money, or somebody's to make a lot of money. Remember, 1,000 people send $250. They have $250,000. 5 people split that. That's $50,000. Who's going to court to fight for $250? Nobody. They'd take it as a loss. They'd write it down as a loss and a learning lesson. In the meantime, people have walked away with a lot of money. Now, NPG Cornerstone, if you take offense to that, I'm sorry. But we don't have a face that tells us who we can go to if, God forbid, that happens. And I don't think that's wrong to ask for if you're asking for money. It's not wrong. We should be able to know who is behind NPG Cornerstone, and if we ask questions and they're critical thinking questions, we should be able to have those questions answered. You're the one asking for help. You want us to have blind faith in, no offense, but a guy that admitted to stabbing somebody 4 times. And by apparently still keeping stump because I don't know why. We don't know why. So, there you go. Alright guys, be better today than you were yesterday. Not half as good as you'll be tomorrow. Thanks.